Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art of Creation show. I'm your host, Rebecca Boswell, and in this show, together, we're going to be looking at how choice creates, and different possibilities for creating a life and a living that can actually work for you. So today, we're joined by special guest, Monica Mata-Gilliam, and she is going to be talking with us today on the topic of joy of embodiment. So if you have a body, if you've ever had a body, if you'd like to have a body, this show, what can we create with it today? Monica has a long history of movement, dance. She's a performer. She's also a writer, an artist, an acupuncturist, and most recently, really having a great time as a certified facilitator of a body of work called Access Consciousness, using energetic tools, working with the body and also the being, facilitating joy in whatever capacity shows up. And then even more playing with a specialty topic, talk to the entities, bringing in even more energies and things that that maybe are outside of what we play with in our everyday life consciously, but that we could be playing with a little bit more. So Monica, it's fabulous to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm super excited to play with you and with the energies of anybody else who might be listening now in the future.
Yes.
What can we explore today?
Yes. So one of the things that I've noticed, meeting you, being with you in person, as well as now, of course, is the ease that you have with your body. Something that I notice when you're walking, when you're just standing, talking to people. There's a fluidity. There's just this ease is really the word that I'm looking for, and that fluidity. Have you always been so at home and at ease with your body?
You know, it's interesting. The truth is that I have not. I spent a long time studying dance, which you would think would give you more ease with your body, but what actually ends up happening is you stand in these rooms with a bunch of beautiful people who are judging themselves like crazy, who are looking in the mirror saying, oh, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's right, da, 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 da. And so it's interesting because when I first started dancing, it was from this really joyful place, and I had a teacher who was really unorthodox, and I was a little bit older in dance terms. I was in my teens, and she was like, you are who you are, and you move how you move, and you move differently than I move, and I'll show you some things so that you can make sure not to hurt yourself, like bend your knees when you land from a jump and kind of practical things like that. But the way you go about it is yours. And so I started with this, like this joyful, just kind of, it was great for a teenager, just drama, and like, a place to just like let it out. But then I went on to college and I was like, oh no, I'm doing it wrong. And then my body kind of started to lock down, and I had some injuries and some problems with my body that now I have a totally different sense of. And so it was this really interesting journey of like really enjoying what I could experience with moving my body, like to spin around, how fun that, but then all of that coupled with the judgment, it's been, now like 20 plus year journey of discovering what is possible with having a body.
Yeah.
And letting go of a lot of the judgments of it has allowed me to be more just really grateful for the fact that I have a body. And that has kind of developed into this space of relaxing with it. Like my body is my friend now.
Oh, wow. What would it take for everyone on the planet? I mean, just imagine the energy and the space that could exist with everyone acknowledging they had a body and being friends with their body and, you know, actually enjoying their bodies. I know, I know friends of mine who were dancers, and it sort of starts out as this joy of movement, expression, like you said, you know, like all this space of like, here I am, world. And then the more and more that the study, you know, gets more and more rigid, it's like there's more and more contraction in the body. And yeah, everybody, you know, are you thin enough? Do your legs look dancery enough? You know, is your posture straight enough? You know, are you the right height? All these things that then have really nothing to do with the actual movement and dance itself. And so then what was that next, what was sort of that unraveling and releasing back into the joy of movement again? Where did that start to show up on your journey?
You know, it's interesting. Part of it came through injury, actually. I had some pretty big injuries, some of them dance related and some of them like bicycle related and other. And so I spent a bit of time not being able to move, or not being able to move fully. And it's so cool in a way, because it like, I had been using my body as a tool for a long time, and I had, you know, I was kind of on this line between like really enjoying to playing with it and then being kind of concerned about like, is it good enough? And then all of a sudden I couldn't really move as well. And realized, oh my God, what a joy it is to be able to move at all. And you definitely remember that when you can't move very well.
Yes.
I had a performance where I had to do all of this movement, but I couldn't move my right arm at all. I'd had a pretty major accident just a couple weeks before this performance. And so part of what I was exploring was like, I know that when you start to kind of hold something in a way, you can add more tension to the body. And so that can impact how the healing process goes. So my target was to not hold my body, not to hold tension around there, but I knew that I couldn't move. I had very limited range. And so what I started to do was play with like, you know, usually I could move my arm like that, but I could still move my arm. It was just like this much. And so I just started to kind of pretend like if that was the whole world for me, that if 1 inch of movement was everything, how much could I really feel it? And like how much ease could I have with it? And how much could I explore the difference between this and this that somebody else might not see, but I feel it, I know it. And so I did this huge performance, and my goal was to make it to dance so that nobody would notice that I wasn't moving my right arm. To be so fully everywhere else. And that was just such a cool practice in really being present and relaxed. And then from there, I started to receive acupuncture and look into that kind of system for moving energy through the body. And I realized like, wow, I have so much familiarity with being aware of when energy is moving through the body and when it isn't. And it's so exciting how your presence can allow energy to move or not move through the body. And so then it just like kept on going and going and going into this huge exploration of just noticing energy and seeing what I could do to shift it. And that in a way became its own dance. So like, I do this actually on airplanes a lot of the time because I travel a lot, and so I'll be, you know, kind of cooped up for a long time, and people have all of these points of view about my legs or whatever. So what I do is I just ask my body to do whatever movements that it would like to do, just in a small scale. And so I'll be kind of like gently just shifting here and there. And once I started doing that, it's funny because it's like you can actually be moving quite a lot and nobody will notice.
That's so cool.
I know. And it's really soothing. And I found when I started to do that, I wasn't uncomfortable. I didn't have jet lag. I just like all of the movement that was required, I didn't have to think about it. I could just relax and let that movement unwind. And then, you know, it was like, yet again, this chance for me to see that there's so much possible with these subtle energies. And my body really gives me a lot of information about when something isn't moving, and I could ignore it like we do sometimes at the computer. You know, like, you know that your neck hurts, but you keep on going.
Right.
Just like,
yeah, not now, not now. Yeah.
Just like taking that moment and allowing yourself to be comfortable. It's funny. It's this like, this request to be more comfortable has totally changed my life with my body. And it seems so simple, you know, but it's like, what's the most comfortable way that I could sit right now?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and you're communicating. I mean, the big thing that I'm picking up here from what you're saying is that you're in this constant communication, constant dialogue, constant energetic exchange, where you're listening to your body, and you have this sort of constant feedback loop going, where you're now working or being together as a unit, as a team, as whatever word you want to use for it, as opposed to, you know, just the brain living in a body and then telling it, no, do this, no, sit still, no, you know, like the parent with the child that's very rigid and, you know, and then the body is just sort of dragged along. And yeah, how well does that actually work? How many times have we like muscled through something with our body or forced our bodies into things and then come out on the other side with, yeah, something that's a lot less ease than what you're saying, having communication with your body and then not having jet lag. I mean, that sounds a lot more fun to me.
Right? It's funny. There's an acupuncturist that I worked with, Stephen Brown. He does a lot of Japanese acupuncture, and he has a teacher who developed this kind of movement method called sotai. And sotai is, so in Japanese, not that I speak Japanese, taiso is exercise, and he wanted something that was the opposite of exercise. So he created this whole system, and the whole premise of it is that you move in the direction of ease. So
Yes.
rather than fighting yourself, rather than fighting your body, you move in the direction of ease. And it's amazing to me how, just like for me growing up in the culture that I grew up with, the family that I grew up with, you know, I had this sense of like, you got to work hard.
Yeah.
And then being a dancer, it was like, you got to fix this and you got to make your body do the thing that you want it to do and work hard.
Yeah.
No pain, no gain, right? Stephen Brown's, his saying was always, no pain, no pain.
No pain, no pain.
No pain. Like a total celebration of like the choice to not have pain, right?
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting. Like there's some really simple, practical, like one example of moving in the direction of ease with your body would be like, you know how some people's shoulders get like really elevated and they have a lot of tension there, you know? So then what people tend to think to do is to like push them down. But that's actually, that takes effort. That's not necessarily easy. And you'll only do that until you forget, and then again. So in sotai, what you would do is you would notice that, like, since your shoulders are elevated, the direction of ease would be up. So what you do is you just inhale and you take your shoulders even higher and you squeeze them for a moment, and then you totally relax, and they'll go down to, they'll relax lower than they were to begin with. So rather than being kind of like, shut up, body, you say, what are you doing?
Let's have more of it.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it, go for it, go for it. And it was amazing because for me, like in my acupuncture clinic, I would notice all of these places where people had tension in their body or in their life, you know, and they would have all of these opinions about it. That
Yeah.
it was bad, you know, rather than just being like, okay, well, that's what we're working with. Now what?
Yeah.
You know? And if
Yeah.
it's not bad, it's just where we are, then what can we do? And it's amazing to see how just like really letting yourself explore it, that requires, from my point of view, letting go of some of the judgments of it. Just
Yeah.
relaxing and seeing what it actually is and explore it even more. And then you find all of these things begin to open up.
Yeah.
For me, moving in the direction of ease, like there are all of these really kind of specific techniques that I learned on using that with the body. But then I've also found moving in the direction of ease is something that we can do with our lives also.
Yeah.
And that's kind of in Access, we talk about like following the energy. If something's like, yes,
Yeah.
moving in the direction of ease. But
Yeah.
for me, it really still has taken kind of a recalibration to be like, okay, moving in the direction of ease is not lazy. It's
Yeah.
actually aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole thing where we get tripped up sometimes of thinking that the easiest solution is actually the energy of ease when they can actually be very different.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And, one of the big things that when I was just watching you talk about the slight movements on the plane, and then you're talking about, going into the ease and following that ease. And it really made me think of, working with bodies when I was working a lot more with bodies and doing more with the fascia and just loving playing with unwinding and how, you can have all this tension in the body. And yet, if you hold someone's head, and you just are like, okay, body, show me your movement. It's amazing how like all of a sudden, their heads will just move all over the place. And it's like, this movement is always there, that would like to be expressed. And yet it's just, no, we keep our heads straight. That's what we do. But then given permission, all of a sudden, if you really just allow it and you follow it, it's like the body is actually in this constant state of movement. And that it's really when we stop the movement that everything kind of like a traffic jam gets kind of blocked up. And, the longer we block it up, the more, you start growing roots there. The traffic starts to grow roots. So really like just this whole the word fluidity just keeps coming up from the beginning of our talk till now, and I really get this energy that you're being and that you're inviting people to with everything you're saying here and being is just that fluidity of like there is this constant movement, there is this constant motion, and just becoming now aware of what that is for you and with your body so that you can actually be flowing through your life and moving through your life as your main way of functioning instead of just muscling and like you said before, that like must do like this, must be like this, that sort of rigid automaton robot thing that we, sometimes try to do to get it right. So it's just really beautiful imagery. And I know that you have a class going on now too. Yeah. So, for the people, I don't know if you'll have that as something that people can purchase after the fact. But I know that also brings this whole energy of movement and that whole conversation into what you're facilitating. So, would you like to share a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So the class is a 12-week series, but people can drop in.
Okay. You're in 8 now?
Next week will be week 9.
So you're going into 9.
So we've got 4 more classes. And if people like, they can purchase the past classes as well.
Okay. So anyone watching, we will have those in the show notes. We'll put the link in there for that.
Totally. So it's called Moving with the Earth. And, you know, honestly, I'm, in addition to everything, I am also a gardener and a total lover of this planet. And, you know, I had to admit to myself the other day that I might like plants more than I like people. You know, there's like animal people. I'm a plant person. Like if there's a plant in the room, I'm gonna go hang out with it before I'll say hello to my friends, which is like, I just had to realize that recently. And part of the thing is that it's like, gosh, you know, we live in this planet that's so generous and abundant and magnificent, and people have all sorts of ideas about like save the planet and all of the horrible things that are going on. But what I have discovered is that just like when I'm present with my body, when I'm present with a plant, it, first of all, it makes me happy. But then also I've had a lot of experiences in the garden where like plants that were dead begin to grow, or things that seemed like impossible started to occur with the plants actually. And so I've been playing for a long time with being present with the plants and the planet. And what I've discovered is that like the energy of you, of who you actually are, has a huge impact on everything. And I like to play with it with the earth. So what are the energies that I can be in a space that would actually contribute to the plants growing? You know, there's some practical things where like I just notice them and so I remember to water them. But then there are other ways of actually being present with the energy flowing through me as I'm working with the plant, which I realize for some people sounds really out there. And that's kind of part of why I wanted to do this like longer series, is because it's really, it's been amazing as I've done more and more kind of energy work with acupuncture and then also with access consciousness, the impact that I've seen of really being present, what that creates in not only our own lives and our own bodies, but in other people's bodies and lives. And my big request has been like, what energies can all of us play with to actually create with the earth? And like, what if the way that you walk down the street can have a flow to it that actually creates something with the earth? So like you were mentioning, you know, that you see me with this ease in my body as I'm talking to people or standing. I have known that my physical presence can create, you know, more anxiety or more peace for the people.
Yeah.
And I've, or the animals or whatever. And so that's one thing that I have really been interested in exploring. So that's kind of my target, is like asking people to be like even more present and listen to the earth. There are all of these ways that our own awareness shows up for each of us. We might just be drawn to look at something. That's a form of being aware. Or we might have an image come or whatever. So I'm really interested in like asking people what it is that they're aware of and then inviting them to use that awareness to create with the whole world, with their bodies. These bodies are Earth bodies. They're not Mars bodies. Like, and when we die, these bodies will go back into the earth. And so there's a way that like elementally we are already connected to the earth. So this is all stuff that I, like I said, I have these big targets. And then also it's like whoever shows up, whatever it is that they're interested in exploring, that's what we get to go into. So we've played around with like healing with the earth and sexual energies with the earth and just like moving, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, well, actually it's funny, just this morning I was like, okay, what's next week's topic? Because it kind of shifts and changes, and it's communicating with plants, actually. So
awesome.
I know, for me, like consciousness is movement. There is the flow of energy that you can be present with that are the possibilities for what can be created unfolding around us.
Yeah.
When I said earlier that, my body is like my friend, a big part of that is that my body has really taught me to be present with energy in a way that I couldn't make up. Like sometimes with my mind.
Yeah, you couldn't think it. You had to actually be it.
Yeah.
and having bodies on this planet really is helpful for that. It can be, because then we have this whole receiver that we get to play with.
Exactly. And you can like make things up in your head that sounds good, but might not actually be what's really going on. But I've found that my body doesn't lie to me.
Oh, cool.
It's like if something's uncomfortable, it's just uncomfortable until it's not uncomfortable. That's it. I can't pretend that it's not uncomfortable before it has shifted.
Yeah, you can try to talk yourself out of it or something, but the information is just still there.
Yeah. And now, I'm not afraid of diving into the information, partially because I've had so much success with changing everything.
Yeah.
So if something comes up, I am more inclined to turn toward it and be like, ooh, what's this? Rather than, oh God, just because I don't find that is very practical for me.
Right. So, and yet isn't that actually, I mean, how much does that show up? I mean, how much, do I do it? How much, do you watching? Have you done that? Like, I mean, that it seems to be the thing. Like once that, the alarm goes off, we have a problem in sector 5, right? And what do we want to do? We want to like, I can't hear you. I don't hear you. I don't know that you're going off, alarm. And so, you try to limp through it. You try to muscle through it. You try to pretend it's not there. You make up a story of why it won't be there soon. But it's still there, and yet it just gets louder and louder and louder and louder. So what's the value of that? And yet, so it's so curious that actually looking at it and allowing it to change is so simple. And yet, we choose these like super complicated and complex alternatives that in the end don't even feel better or create greater.
Right. It's like if you have somebody like a murderer standing in your room and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to see that.
Right.
And so you like put a sheet over them and you like turn off the light or, like all of these things that like, well, now I don't see them, but that's not actually helping me out,
Right.
Rather than being like, whoa, that person who's in the room, I know that person's a murderer. Now what?
Right. Now what would I like to choose? Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to get out of the room. Or
right.
they get out of the room or.
Right.
Whatever. Like turning toward it, all of a sudden, many other possibilities.
Yeah.
Up,
Yeah. And this is a real example too of where before when you were saying sometimes, turning into the ease can be a little counterintuitive because it seems like, it would be easier to just ignore it or put the sheet over, but actually it's greater ease to choose something where now you're not going to be affected by it.
Right.
However long, beyond that. So that's a great example of like, wow,
Well, the interesting thing for me with all of that is that like the more that I turn toward things, the more I discover how strong I am. And as I've worked with others, it's like people have had all sorts of experiences in their lives. There's been a lot of abuse that is like a very common thing within the human world, that a lot of people have different forms of PTSD And what I've discovered is that actually being present with it, you'll find that people are so incredibly strong in ways that they never knew. And not only do they have the strength to face it, they also can change it. You know, and that for me, like that is what I'm most interested in, you know, is like, honestly, from a totally greedy standpoint, I want to be in a world with a bunch of strong people who are creative and who are present and who can like face anything and like put a bow on it and like turn it into a party, you know, rather than like now all we can do is have another war, or now all we can do is, you know, oppress somebody. Like that's, for me, I'm just like, that's not very creative, you know, like you just stopped at the war option. You just stopped at oppression. Couldn't we figure something else out, you know? And like, I find that it's when people get frozen in some way that they stop that movement of energy, both in their own lives and in their bodies, and in the like the possibilities for all of us, you know.
Well, and what you're showing me with all this too is, you know, so we're talking about, so, you know, we're beings, and then we have bodies, and then having that flow and that movement with our bodies, and beginning to have that dialogue and recognizing, oh, we can play together here. This is like, okay, we're kind of together. And then you're talking about the earth, and the earth has its movements, and it's like, oh, and like, what if that's actually just an extension of our, you know, this is our physical body, but the earth now, like, what if that's actually just a larger extension of our physical bodies? And what if this movement is not just confined to this one separate body that's now separate from every other body? You know, what if these are actually just all, you know, all parts of a greater whole? And when we begin to play in that space of all moving together, if there's no separation, I mean, you know, it might be easier for someone to be angry and, you know, shoot their neighbor. But if their neighbor was themselves, would they be so quick to pull the trigger, right? And so beginning to see, like you were talking before about how, you know, when we die, it's elemental. When we die, our bodies become the earth, and then we rise from that as well. And it's like, so what if there is never actually this separation that we perceive of, like, now I'm this body, now I'm dead, now I'm a worm, like I'm being eaten by a worm. Like, what if it's all, it's all something that we have access to, and that there is really no separation between us, the earth, the plants, the other people, everything.
I mean, if you look at like the plants, they're changing the carbon dioxide into oxygen, which we breathe, right? We feed each of our cells. So there's this like exchange. And without the plants, we wouldn't be able to have our bodies in this way. That's not to say it might have been some other way that the bodies would develop. Like, or, you know, with each person in the room, like what they bring into the room can have a huge impact on you physically as well as psychically or energetically. And so, like I said, for me being kind of greedy, I'm like, come on, who is able to be a source of change? Come on. Like, everybody who's been pretending, myself included, that like, oh, I don't know if I can, or that's scary. Like, what actually are you capable of? What is it?
So this is so as a facilitator of Access Consciousness, and then also of Talk to the Entities, that really is the invitation, isn't it? Where you know, you're saying, okay, so you know more is possible. You'd like to live in a world that has greater possibility. And then you invite people to come to you. So what is that like? So when people choose sessions or classes with you, I mean, what, you know, for people who aren't familiar with this, I mean, what is that adventure like? Clearly it's different for everyone, but like, what is that? What is it that you're inviting them to
Well,
individually?
totally. What has been so exciting to me about this work is that I find it to be so empowering.
Mm-hmm.
That it really is about being a different perspective that can also introduce a bunch of tools to assist people to like use their own lives and bodies and awareness to make the choices that they would like to make. So for me, working with somebody, they come to me and they say, okay, this is what I want to work on. I've got this problem, this problem, this problem. And then kind of actually, it's very similar to my acupuncture practice when people would come in and they'd say, my body hurts here. And then we'd both get to go like, okay, what is that? Have you been with your body all day? What did you do? Did you like, whatever. Sometimes it's like somebody's been punching themselves in the face and they're like, my face
Why
hurts.
does my face hurt? Yeah.
And then you could be like, well, are you punching yourself? And they're like, oh, I am. And then they can choose to stop or not. It doesn't matter if they choose to stop or not. Maybe they're like, no, I'm trying to create this perfect bruise that I'm going to wear. Who cares? It's all choice. Everybody's allowed to choose anything. It's just that sometimes people are not very conscious about what it is that they're choosing that's creating what's going on. So that's part of my job as a facilitator. I mean, to facilitate is to make easy. That's what the word means, to make it easy, right? Which I love. And so people come to me and I get to ask them questions to really allow them to see what it is that they know is going on. Okay. And they, from there, can choose to shift or change things. And then, so that's kind of personal sessions where we get to like dive into the details of exactly what's going on and shift the energy around it or discover some new possibilities for choices that are available. And then with the classes, I mean, this is the amazing toolkit of these different systems, access consciousness and talk to the entities, that blow my mind. One of my different jobs is I have the coolest title in the world. I'm an oracle, which that the oracle like has all of the information at the time that it's required. I like to call myself a fancy librarian. I'm a big nerd and I love to organize information so that if somebody needs something, I can pull it up. So in Access, we use a lot of clearings, verbal clearings, to get at the energy kind of behind things that are stuck and to shift that. And so as an oracle, I will, in class, I type down all the clearings and send them out. And just recently, there was a foundation class that occurred in Houston, and I just finished transcribing the whole class, and that's going to be turned into the new manual. And I can't tell you, like, I've been facilitating this class for a few years, and so I'm familiar with the different really practical tools, but having to write down every word of that class, it was like, this body of work inspires me in so many ways. And all of the people who showed up, like their questions actually changed what is possible for all of us. Their questions opened up new information, and that shifted the tools that are available. And those tools are super useful, And so for me, that's part of what I love so much, is that like the really basic intro classes in Access give you more tools than you know what to do with, really.
Yeah.
And then you can use those tools and apply them anywhere you'd like. You don't have to, but you can. And then you get to play and see what it is. And it turns life, for me, from being this kind of like, I don't know, this sequence or series of like right and wrong choices and things that I did well or poorly or whatever, into like this playground to really explore and see what it is that I can create here in this world, and to use these different tools to like really even be more present, to really like play with different nuances of energies and possibilities. So the classes are really like to give you this amazing toolkit, and then you get to play with it however.
So, and I know you've been traveling a lot, both as the Oracle or fancy librarian, and also facilitating your different classes. I know you're going to be in New York City with a Talk to the Entities class at the beginning of June, so just in a couple weeks. And so Talk to the Entities, we had Allison Cox on the show. And so, of course, you know her. And so, you know, we did have a bit of a conversation. So for anybody who's watching, that is an episode you can go back to. It is from this season 3. But what is Talk to the Entities for you, Monica? And what drew you to add this toolkit to your facilitator's toolkit that you already had?
Yeah. Well, I have always had been very sensitive, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'd pick up on stuff that maybe other people didn't pick up on. And when I was really young, I would see people that weren't there, and I would hear voices, and I realized when I was about 5 that I made up that when I was about 5, if I told anybody about that, then I would be like medicated or
crazy,
you know, and I didn't want to be crazy, you know, so I spent a lot of time being like, nope, I don't hear that, and I have enough strength to be like, shut up, you know, and then, but I would still have a lot of information from my body, like, you know, the hairs on the back of your neck standing up, or just something, you know, people are comfortable with intuition, so they'd be like, right, oh, great intuition, you know, right. And so I would be picking up on all of this stuff, and it was actually quite scary to me, and part of it was like, I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what to do with that information. I didn't want to be crazy. I was like comfortable with being a little bit weird. Like, I'm a performer artist, but I didn't want to be so weird that like I was just going to be on the outskirts of society or something. And so I worked really hard to not be as sensitive as I was. And then I actually had a patient in my acupuncture clinic who came in, and she was just showing all of the signs of being very, very aware, and she was freaked out by it. And I just decided, okay, whatever it takes, whatever tools are required to assist her, I'm gonna look for it. And so then I just started searching everywhere, and I came across Talk to the Entities, and I was like, well, I'll try these tools out on me before I, you know, suggest them to somebody else. And it changed my life, you know? And so I was living in New Orleans at the time, and there's a lot of...
yeah, there might be a few entities in New Orleans.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of like, people are kind of talking about the spirit world and voodoo and stuff like that. But, you know, for me, talking to entities includes plants and includes like my business and stuff like that. So for me, you know, it really wasn't so much about like going into the spirit world, although I had done a lot of different like shamanic traditions and stuff like that. It was more about like, what else can I be aware of? Yeah. What am I aware of that's even more subtle than just the bodies in the room? Like, if I wasn't limiting my conversations to only people, what could I be talking to? I mean, I'm already...
So what you could see. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm already talking to my plants. I'm already talking to animals, you know, in the way that I am. And what else is there?
Yeah. And what would it be like to actually then receive, instead of just talking at them, actually being able to receive the information for a dialogue between you?
Exactly. In all of the ways that that shows up, because that shows up very differently for a lot of people. And for me, at first, a lot of it showed up through my body. And, you know, I'm willing to listen to my body. And so my body would give me information about like some other kind of non-physical energies. And then I began to discover that some of them were entities, like somebody's grandma is following them around, you know, and for like, I have a million and one really, I find, interesting stories about being aware of different, you know, relatives of people who've passed away, or, you know, somebody who died in that building or something like that. And that's kind of the like, the drama that people like to
Yeah.
hear about when they're like, ooh, ghosts, you know?
Yeah.
But for me, really, the thing that was the most exciting was that, like, playing with this, I had to admit what I was aware of. I couldn't always be like, hey, do you see that? I had to acknowledge what I was aware of. So
Yeah.
it was like taking access consciousness and all of those tools and putting it on steroids. Like all of this stuff that somebody might say is super weird and not even true. If you know it, you know it. Then
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Then what do you do with that? And then to discover that like you can actually be present in all of these other ways with all of these other energies, again, super empowering. Like I could go into a room, especially in New Orleans, and like notice just the like heavy funk in that room, and then use some different clearings and it would change and everybody would notice it. But I wasn't necessarily like, oh, you know, like having
Right.
you know?
Yeah, there weren't any goat hooves involved or
No.
anything.
The thing is that like for me at that time, it was helpful that I didn't have to come out about it,
Yeah.
honestly. You know, it's like, it was a very vulnerable thing for me to realize that like, okay, I have this information and I can create change in the world and can actually create more ease in my life and in the lives of others. And so I went through a little period of like, okay, I can kind of do this in secret. But then I realized like, what's the point of that? There are other people who also are incredibly aware and don't know exactly what to do with that. And I know what it's like to be locked up in your own nervousness about what it is that you're aware of.
Yeah.
And like, it just doesn't have to be like that. It's not crazy to be aware of energies. It's actually transformative just to acknowledge what you're aware of and to work with that.
So if someone is listening to this and then there are pieces from your story where they're kind of like, oh my gosh, that sounds like me. Oh my gosh, she's telling my story. I know that. And if this is very new for them, you know, what's one tool that they could just start playing with to begin having more ease and to be able to trust that, yeah, because what I also hear you saying is there's sort of this initial period of one, trusting yourself, and then also trusting that by acknowledging these different things that you're not going to be in danger. You know, I think there's a lot of fear sometimes around the unknown, and when it's like, you know, what's going to happen to me if I acknowledge this thing? What's going to happen with that thing? Regardless of what it is, it could be the energy of a plant, you know, but sometimes just like knowing there's something, right? It's like you put the sheet over the murderer before you looked at it. So like, you know, there's something under there, but you don't even really know what it is.
Right. I mean, you know, it's funny because it is true. Like when you start to look at these things, it can bring up a whole lot. It can bring up everything that you've been using to make sure you didn't look over there.
Yeah, I mean, all the things that, you know, I mean, if it's something that you're trying to hide from yourself, I mean, how many different, you know, locks and walls and barriers have been put up there so that, you know, so that it can feel safe.
Totally. Totally. I mean, for me, I just kept on using questions, and like I would just ask questions. I used the access clearing statement a lot when I was first going into this, and I had just randomly found the clearing statement online. I watched a YouTube video and I was like, what's that? I'm going to ask myself a lot of questions and say the clearing statement and see. And then I just started to notice things shifting. So I would do that a lot. And if anybody wants to know that, you can go to theclearingstatement.com, so you can play around with that.
Yeah.
But
the magic eraser. So like when
yes.
an energy comes up, it's like your magic eraser, so that, anywhere that is the energy that's stuck in your life, you can actually erase it and then see what shows up next. And then if you want to change that, you can change that too. Ooh. All right. Exciting.
So that's one thing that I just was playing with in kind of a free form way when I was first starting. But these days, it's like I really do just turn and look at everything. And so I say hello a lot. Then I relax. Oh, that's my most favorite Jedi skill. Relax. Just relax. Sounds so simple, but it doesn't really take anything other than the choice to relax. And when you do that, you discover you have more capacities than you might have imagined. So if you're aware of something that's in the room, relax. Look at it. Already, for you, if you can relax, I find when people, more often than not, you have what it takes to face anything. You're the only one who doubts it and stops it. And so one way that we stop it is to doubt it and be like, oh no, I can't deal with this, rather than okay, what? And that courage is something that we get to choose or not, whenever and wherever we would like to. And it's really up to you. But if you can just turn toward your awareness and relax, already that begins to change things in your body. That begins to change things in your life. And then ask a question. And some questions that I like to ask are, what question could I ask here?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, is there somebody that I could talk to that would assist me with having more ease here? So just begin to explore, what it's like to be aware and choose to relax. Just like sometimes if a kid's freaking out, you just have to be like, all right, baby, let's just relax,
Yeah.
Do that for yourself.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, this, everything that we've talked about has really, it just keeps coming back actually to this of really go into the ease and just really go into what is, and just, how present are you willing to be, and what would that create? What could it create when we can just be more of that space? Right. Yeah. Cool. Wow, I love it. So Monica, what is the best way, or what are some different ways that people can connect with you, contact you, play with you? What's possible in this 10 seconds?
Yes. Well, in this 10 seconds, the best way to get in touch with me is via email, monica@monicamatagilliam.com. Or you can go to my website, which is monicamatagilliam.com. I have temporarily been having difficulty with Facebook. So usually I would say Facebook, but we'll figure something else out, and there will be information on my website. So if you can remember my name, you can find me. And then I will be in New York in just a couple weeks. I'm going to do a talk to the entities class, but then the following weekend I'll be doing a foundation class that I'm super excited about.
Awesome. And now can you give us the inside scoop? Will you actually be using the new manual, do you think, by then?
Well, I don't know, because she is working on it right now, but I can tell you that I know the new
manual.
I have every word of what will be the new manual. So I am very excited about all of that. And I'm also talking to Anne a lot. So I'm not sure if it seems like it's very likely that it can be done by then.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely come to my class.
I was going to say, so the bars class is a 1-day class where you learn the hands-on process of the bars, and that is the prerequisite for foundation. Foundation is a 4-day class that is chock full of tools, like Monica said, for really just, getting a sense of, hey, what have I been functioning from? And what else is possible? What tools can I use to actually begin to, to create a life and a living that is from here and not, just reactive to everyone and everything else. So this is pretty cool. The brand new manual that is coming out of that class from Houston that Monica had mentioned, it may not be out. So she probably is one of the few people on the planet who can give you the new class before the manual is even out. So if that's in any way tantalizing, choose it. What would that create? So cool. So, and on your website, I'm sure as new things are offered, the link will also be there for the class that that she's offering now. So you can also jump into that if you're like, yes, more movement with the earth and moving with the earth. I'd like more of that energy. It is available to you. So Monica, is there anything else that you would like to put on the table, or that you would like to voice here before we close?
I mean, we really did cover a lot.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just excited to see truly what's possible. This world, there are tons of people on this world. And
yes.
And it's exciting to me when I look at like history, that there are single people throughout time who have actually changed the whole world. Mm-hmm. In big ways and small ways, whether you like wrote a jingle that's now in everybody's head or you like changed the face of Africa or
invented toilet paper.
Exactly. and it's it really is like showing up that allows these world changers to like play with us all, assist us all, not just now, but off into the future. And I guess I'm just really interested in, who is it out there who is holding back the next big possibility?
Yes.
Whether they acknowledge it or not, like, who are you? Would you please come out?
Come out and play. Step forward.
In whatever way it is. It doesn't have to be on stage. It can just be in your own life,
Yeah.
Like we miss you. We're looking for you. Please.
Yeah. And how much is that the biggest lie, really? Because how many people are, I mean, even you watching now, like how many people are there thinking, wow, changing the world, like that's a big thing, but that's not me, that's everyone else. And what if we actually all had the capacity to create that big change in the world? And it's just everything we've decided about what it would have to look like that keeps us from just being it, whatever it is. So if we didn't actually have to decide in advance how and what we were going to choose to have this big splash on the planet, like what if we could just get rid of all the stuff that makes us, believe that we're not a contribution, or that we don't have something magical to contribute.
You know, just with that, I'm sure I could go on forever, but one thing just with everything that we've been talking about is like, what if you were to just say hello to you and relax? And you don't have to right away face the murderer in the corner.
Yeah.
Actually look at you and allow yourself to be present with you, whether that's with your body or just whatever it is that's coming up with you, and just say hello and relax, and then invite yourself to play.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And know that there are lots of amazing tools and facilitators and people who actually would like for you to be you and are available to, if you ever are having a difficult moment.
Yeah. And to contribute to that process. Cool. Well, Monica, thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for this amazing conversation. I'm really, I know I'll be listening back to this one again, because there's just some real great nuggets and possibilities here. So thank you also to everybody watching. Without you, it would just be Monica and I talking, and it's so much more fun with you here. So thanks for showing up. Thank you for liking the Facebook page, The Art of Creation Show. Thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel. And as always, if there's someone or a topic that you would love to explore on this show, please let us know. And otherwise, I wonder, what will you be choosing this coming week? What all is possible? And what will we discover next? Thank you guys so much for showing up. See you next time.
Bye.
All right.